and girls. Okay, Annie, we can start the meeting in order, if you would. Okay, and you're up there, up in the mayor's seat.
Oh, dear, wow. And I'm guessing everybody got the copy of this year's report on the community garden.
Yes.
It's nice to see you. So we basically had a very successful community garden year. We had 10 plots. We had them all spoken for. People paid, it was $60 for each plot this year. And we had a waiting list. For the most part, things went really well. And then at the end of the year, we sent out a survey, which I'm not sure if, I think some highlights of it are attached. I think there's a copy of it that's available. And we had a pretty good response. I want to say 6 or 8 people filled out the survey. And the issues that I was kind of tracking during the year all popped up on the survey. And 2 of the 3 of them popped up on the survey. The first, I guess the easy peasy one is the issue with the water and why can't they use a hose on the tanks? The answer is because there's not enough water pressure and you'll empty the tanks. And the fire department did a really excellent job keeping those tanks filled. So we had water throughout the season. I understand why people want to use hoses, but we have to make clear next year that that is not an option. It's not that hard to haul water. My plot is the farthest at the far end, and we hauled water, and it was not really a problem. We can recommend that they mulch to save water so they don't have to water as much, and we did that. The other issue was a repeat of last year, and that's the little animal. It is not a deer. I think it's a rabbit. It's digging in. We actually saw it one day, and it's big. It's digging in under the fence, and if you fill in its hole and block that space, it just moves down. And the gardeners, we heard about it in the survey, and we heard about it face to face. They were really discouraged. I understand. We suspected there was a rabbit, so we didn't plant anything that was terribly tempting. But it was, when we went to close the garden, it was still getting in because I had a winter crop of kale and had finished that off. So we need to come up with a way. And I think the 2 options that I listed in the report, the small electric fence on the inside, which should work against a rabbit, won't work against a woodchuck, but the woodchuck has not been a problem yet. The other is encouraging people to fence. But then if your plants are exuberant and go down into the path, the animal's still going to be on those. Or you can also use repellent, but often that has to be refreshed after every rain, which then becomes a toss-up. We're happy when it's raining because we don't have to water, but then you have to go and spray your repellent. So since we're charging people money, I think we need to deal with that before next year. The other issue was that of the 10 gardeners, we had 1 gardener who put in some pollinator flowers and then walked away for the rest of the season. And that space grew giant, enormous weeds. We need to come up with a process so that if somebody is clearly not using their space, we can refund their money and assign the space to someone on the waiting list. I don't know if any waiting list people went and visited the community garden, but if they had, I think they might have been annoyed to see people not really using that space. So we need to come up with some guidance before next year. Not, 30 pages of, I don't know how to say it. Some of these community gardens get pretty detailed, complicated, and a little bit fascist on their recommendations. But I think we can at least tell people, use your space and don't use hoses. I guess, any questions?
The tank, is there some way people can attach hoses to the tank
I
right now?
think that's what they were doing.
So is there a way to put a nozzle on that's not, you can't put a garden hose on, you know? there's something-
Maybe.
And maybe that will end that issue
That'd be a
completely.
question for Jim, because it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim and the Parks crew.
I mean, the tanks themselves aren't real tall, and
Yeah.
they want to be able to take the hose and not have to carry water.
Right, right.
And like Letty was saying, if one person takes a hose and walks away from it, now you just drank the whole tank
Yeah,
Yeah,
overnight or something.
yeah,
and that's not fair to the other gardeners or the
I mean,
fire.
Yeah.
you know, the one tank is low, low to bend over, we'll get them up higher.
So
Just
if
so it'll be easier use.
so the tank is designed so you empty it into a gardening.
Garden.
Yeah,
tank,
like a
right?
watering can
So could
or a
you put
bucket.
something on there so you can empty, but you can't attach a garden hose to?
The one you
Okay.
can, it's a bigger nozzle,
Yeah.
it's like a big half quarter
Yeah.
turn. The other one does have, you could put a hose on it up, but
Maybe just stop.
the gravity doesn't let you go more than a couple feet. There's no pressure to it.
Yeah, so it's really kind of pointless to even try using a hose.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll get a little higher because they can have a hard time getting their tail under.
then they won't work anymore. Okay.
Right, but it's not, you know, there is a community rural, if they want to wheel their water over or bring their own, you know, wagon rather than carrying, but like let it
Yeah.
carry it all the way to the other end. The first two rows shouldn't have a problem water. in there.
Except I'm used to farm work, I can do water buckets. But it's not that, I mean, we have small children.
Right.
Carrying water in.
How about a couple shame signs that shame them too? So please don't take all the water out of this tank by using a hose.
Yeah.
Your neighbors are sharing with you.
Well, and the other issue, and I didn't include it in the report, was that we had asked people to park at the house and walk. When we would show up, we could tell that people clearly were not parking at the house and walking. I didn't put it in the report because I suspect it might have been one of the other older gardeners. But that might be an issue. Maybe just putting down some wood chips in a part would be a parking space that's not gonna, so they're not tearing up the grass.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Can you make suggestions on the rules that you want to implement so we can?
Yes,
Okay.
okay, I will put that
Yeah.
on my list. So we can come up with a draft guidance.
Yeah.
And have it in place.
Yeah, Letty works pretty closely with Donna here.
Yeah, and we actually, somewhere we have the old guidance from the infamous Community Garden Committee. Which I don't know if we want to resurrect that or not.
Don't think so.
The way you stated it, probably not.
Should we expand the number of lots?
If, I don't know if we can,
I think part of that might be waiting to see. We're thinking that possibly the ultimate good resting place for this garden is at the McGee property.
Right.
the school district property, and I think there we could expand.
well, and the other thing we can do there is either. We have a water line,
Yes.
so there we could actually put in a water point where they could use hoses.
That's part of looking at the overall master plan. Oh, we're thinking that might be.
And then when we install the fence, we could actually bury it. It's a little hard to do that after the fact.
Yeah, I think we did a great job on a kind of a short-term basis.
Yeah.
Just throwing something together to see how it would work. So obviously it's working well, and people want to do it, so.
And with all gardens, you learn something each year that, you know, it's never perfect. It's hard to explain that to people when they read the magazine article that tells them they're gonna be feeding their family, but it's never perfect. Although we got about 125 pounds of tomatoes from our garden.
Oh, my goodness.
It was impressive.
Yeah.
It's the full sun and the location is really good, but the McGee Road property also has full sun and it's higher up. This one's in a frost pocket. So I think we took our stuff, we were done before this year's chance of frost, but last year, I think the frost hit there before the end of October. Okay,
All right,
So I have
Betty,
something
thank you
on
very
my-
much. Thanks for all your
Thank
help.
you.
The same people coming this year, or the previous year, or is it the
I
new
think we
people?
had, I want to say 2 or 3 repeats, most of them were new.
We were surprised because the reviews weren't terrible last year, but then when we reached out to folks this past spring, the majority said they didn't want to do it again, but there were plenty of people who did.
They found out gardening's a
We had
lot of
no
work.
problem.
Yeah. I think that's part of it. And the thing that was, part of the thing that was so not surprising in a way, but was surprising of how many immigrant families we had gardening. And probably in half of the plots, we had vegetables that are not traditional here. So,
Mhm. That's great.
some, I think bitter melon and some other things that you would have to go to a specialty grocery store to even buy. It was,
That's-
so, it'd be fun to do a garden tour for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Okay, Stephanie.
Here's some handouts. I didn't get them in time for the work packet. You don't have to read too much of it now, because I'm probably just gonna read you most of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I can pass.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm Stephanie Gunling. Oh, I'm gonna let your voice go out. I'm the chair of the EAC. Many of our EAC members are here today, Elizabeth, Letty, and Paul in the front row. And I think Denise is virtually attending as well. So we're here today.
Chris is on.
Oh, Chris, sorry, Chris. Chris is on there too. The reason I'm here today is to discuss the potential process that we would like to draft, to draft to set up a potential process to draft a tree and woodlands protection ordinance for consideration by council. Just to give you a little bit of a background on this sheet, which, you know, everyone can take home and read tonight before bed. To give a little background, as everyone knows, we recently passed the comprehensive plan in September, yay. Some of the plan identifies green space preservation, managing the impacts of development and stormwater and environmental issues as some of the most important and pressing needs in the borough. More specifically, goal 1 within the green space and preservation theme is to expand preservation areas in the borough by converting additional land to be held in conservation. Goals 1 through 3 in the managing development impacts theme were to create a vision for future development in Franklin Park that's consistent with the future land use map by identifying any potential zoning map changes, identifying targeted preservation areas, and exploring the creation of incentives or regulations for design standards, so on and so forth. So over the past year, kind of in anticipation of the completion of this plan, the EAC has been having discussions every month and reviewing both Franklin Park's currently existing ordinances, investigating the various tree and woodlot protection ordinances within local Allegheny County municipalities, as well as others in Pennsylvania and in other nearby states, to try and get a feel for what's out there and what we currently have, and where we have some room for improvement. As a result, we kind of put together a goal statement here, and then a few just very general outlined objectives that kind of resulted as this process. So I'm going to read for you the goal statement that we put together. It's a bit lengthy, but the way I see it, you can always go back and delete things, and I'm sure there will be adaptations of this. It'll be revised many times from here on out. But the goal is, as we saw it, was to better protect trees and woodlands within Franklin Park Borough, both prior to and during land development, to conserve the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of our environment. Alleviate soil erosion and improve stormwater management to reduce flooding. Reduce the harmful effects of land disturbance to adjacent lands and watercourses, and ensure residents' rights to clean air and pure water is protected, and further promote health, safety, and welfare of the residents. So the way we saw it, and again, the goal of today is to kind of get a feel for where council's at, and hopefully we could set up some sort of a process to all work together to develop something, for the Borough Council's consideration. The way we saw it is there was kind of three main areas to look at. The first would be to amend the Saldo ordinance, which would include a section specifically dedicated to tree and woodland protection. And then kind of in doing that, it would necessitate a couple revisions to the currently existing ordinance, specifically kind of the environmental protection section of the Saldo ordinance, which would mainly talk about steep slopes. They kind of come hand in hand with clearing trees. Secondly, you know, one of our thoughts was, okay, you set up this whole tree and woodlot protection ordinance, awesome. Well, some developers just gonna come in before they apply for all their permits and clear cut it. So there may necessitate some changes to the logging ordinance as well. So I know I only have 10 minutes. Again, that was just the goal today, is to gauge everybody out, see if we have your support to continue in this process, and work together with council members, borough staff, the solicitor, so we can really put something together that stands a chance for approval by council.
Definitely, I like this idea a lot. We also sent you guys two draft ordinances. Were they helpful in guiding your research and as to why you're coming back to us?
Yeah, extremely helpful, and especially the Pine Township ordinance we had not seen.
Mhm.
And that one kind of, I was just like, well, I didn't know that was out there. It was extremely helpful.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's a good idea if we can come up with something that's good for Franklin Park, not necessarily just some cookie cutter thing that came from one of the other
sure.
neighbors. So that makes sense. We had talked specifically about the issue that maybe our steep slopes really weren't working for Franklin Park or even Western Pennsylvania where they were written. Yeah, so.
Okay, yeah,
But yeah, but I mean, I would be, if everybody else is on board, I would love to have some recommendations on how the stuff could be revised and meet the objectives that you folks are trying to meet, so.
and I don't know if the best way to do that is to set up some sort of committee or to work with the land use committee, you know, maybe we can jump on board, or whatever you guys think.
You have to work with the solicitor too, and the
And-
solicitor definitely will be, at the land use and planning committee meeting, so maybe that is the way to kind of dovetail it.
Has Tree Pittsburgh gone through this process?
I was like, who's talking? I don't know. That's a good question.
No.
Yeah, I can check on that.
To your point on the municipality ordinances, Pine, that one seems better for us. I definitely don't think the Swicked model where they have a shade tree commission.
I hope we don't have that one. We didn't even send that to you, did we?
We did, we had already seen the Swickley ones, Shade Tree Commission and Street Tree
Yeah.
Commissions, really like, we kind of all were like, you know, I don't think we'll really gain much because we don't have many street trees and sidewalks in a village and stuff like that, so
Yeah.
we kind of shied away from those model ordinances.
It was
And
kind of over the top too in general when you take a look.
and then you have to regulate and kind of,
Yeah,
also, I want to clarify too, that, we don't foresee this ordinance as applying to, you know, private, single-family home
Yeah, right.
residents. This isn't an attempt to try and get somebody to get a permit to cut down a tree. This
Right.
is not that. This is a proactive ordinance prior to land development.
Yeah.
Um,
that all makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. I know that's where you're at. It's good to let everybody.
Yeah, when everybody-
And honestly, the EAC has gone, you know, some members are for that and some are against, but this is how we decided to move forward.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It would be an uphill battle.
Yeah.
You mentioned trees of significance. Is there a definition of that?
You know, I think, the Pine Township ordinance had it mostly due to size,
Okay.
diameter.
That's pretty standard.
Yeah. It's a 4 foot.
Yeah, really not, species doesn't really never seem to play into any of the ordinances. And steep, you know, trees on steep slopes would also be a priority as well to help prevent stormwater erosion
Yeah.
and flooding and stuff like that. That's kind of why we said we may need to go back and look at the saddle ordinance and see how we define our steep slopes. You know, is that a 15% or 25%? Stuff like that. So.
Max, what do you think the most efficient way, if they're based on their ask here, what's the best way to handle it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously start preparing draft ordinances, I mean, I think, yeah, the one on the steep slopes, 910, section 910 is more of a discussion that sort of talk through it, Tim and Sean, in terms of the topography and the issues we run into, as council knows, pretty much every plan that comes through is required a requested modification. You know, on the one hand, that does control development, because they know they need to get a modification, and it is something that is, you know, a not discretionary call, but it is something that can be used to deny a application that can't meet the standards in the ordinance. Logging is a area in Pennsylvania particularly that is fraught with difficulty because the MPC says all municipalities have to allow forestry activities permitted use by right in every zoning district. You could put reasonable regulations on logging, but the Attorney General, and there was a case in the last year in the Commonwealth Court, which essentially said, you know, almost any restriction is unreasonable. And so that one, we have the ordinance in place. I don't think we've done an overhaul recently. Some of our other municipalities have, either to tighten up or to address sort of that case. That one's going to take a little more sit down, talk it through, research, come back. But I think at least on the tree preservation section, we could have at least a model work based on pines and sort of fitting it in for the land use committee. And you know, with any of those meetings, I mean, the land use committee is the council that you can invite. It's a public meeting, you know, it's open to the public in general, and you can invite members of EAC and other things like that. The other thing we gotta consider, planning commission would be part of this review at some point, either at the end, or they could be involved in terms of drafting or doing other lifting. So if the land use committee says, okay, we've got sort of the outline here, we would like to refer this to the planning commission to do the drafting and meet and talk about it. We've done that in some other instances, and bring in EAC, you can have sort of joint meetings, likely at the planning commission. And their schedule is a little light, there's no big applications, so planning commission.
Bad time.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Some availability,
Sounds good.
so I would leave that, yeah.
So what's next steps you would say?
I mean, I think probably maybe for a more robust discussion, whenever our next land use committee meeting is, figure out, do we keep it the land use committee, or what involvement do you have a planning commission at that land use committee meeting, and have at least for discussion purposes, a draft tree preservation section just for discussion purposes based on pines.
Now, do you think we plan on the next committee?
Well, I don't know, we have 2024.
Yeah.
I was gonna say 2020, I do. It's at
Oh,
the-
you do?
It's at the end of the packet, the 2024 schedule's there. So I think everything's pretty much open.
Okay.
When we get there, yeah, we have, well, January 2nd, you're starting at 6:30 that
Yeah, we
night, so you don't wanna
got it.
do that. You have January 17th, or February 7th, February 21st, so everything's wide.
17th is fine.
Think so.
Let's make 17th.
That gives you enough time to get some shit out.
And you can do the draft of the tree preservation.
Yeah.
And then EAC's invited,
Yeah.
17th. You come with bells on.
What time was that again?
6.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, I forgot to mention is I do have calls out to, Pine Township and Ross Township, kind of to get a feel for how their ordinance is working and, you know,
If we have to be tweaked at all, we'd like to know that now before we put something in place that,
exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
that's good.
So,
Okay.
and Jim, Porcelli from the EAC, had a great idea to reach out to the E-Code 360, subscription that, Franklin Park has. And they're also, or may have already just today sent us some other model ordinances to look at as well, so, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you guys, thank everyone so much.
In case you haven't sensed, I think you have council support.
Okay, all right, good to know, good to know.
Good talk. Yeah,
Cindy,
question.
I didn't include you. Cindy is also here. She's our fearless liaison for a few more weeks. Thanks Cindy also for all your help.
Tom has another question.
And she's very aware of all the discussions we've had too, if anybody wants to corner her.
Just one comment on this, Mike. I love trees. My son's actually an arborist. Went through all the tests and went to Del Valley College, which is an ag school in Philadelphia. Absolutely love the trees of Franklin Park. But I want to be cautious that as we look at this, sometimes if you're laying out a development with some of the other requirements of Franklin Park, there's all underground utilities. So you're digging for electric, you're digging for usually for gas, for sewers, for storm sewers. A lot of times, if you have too many trees that you're trying to work around, you're going to hurt the trees by just putting the utilities in. And sometimes if you have so many, you're not going to literally be able to build on it. So one other thing you may want to consider, just a suggestion would be, if trees have to be removed to allow reasonable development, maybe we have something in the ordinance about what they need to be replaced with.
Yeah, right. And what would be recommended that would meet that requirement?
Because
The size and-
there's like a formula, something like, I don't know, 1.4 times the diameter, you have to be that number of feet away to protect the root ball of those trees, or you're going to injure the tree and hurt it. And the tree's probably not going to be sustainable anyway. So I think that maybe that would be a way to give some protection that the trees are removed, trees can be replaced.
Yeah, definitely. And Pine Townships, I think, also does a nice job of outlining that too.
Yeah, I haven't read those.
If you need,
I
yeah.
haven't read them for a couple
Yeah.
of months. But
We sent them to the AC, we're like, we'll see them again.
I don't expect that anybody in this room has read the ordinances as closely as I have, but,
Solicitor.
yeah, you can look at my red pen, but, yeah, they do that. They have a section for exemptions and, how you replace trees when they aren't.
For sure.
So,
Thank you
Yeah.
for putting it together.
Good point. Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Doug.
right.
It's not-
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Remember.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, cityscape. Are they on?
Uh,
Yeah.
Yes.
yes, Susan is on.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for having me back to answer questions that you all may have regarding our proposal. I am open to accept all your questions. Can I help you?
Hey, Tom, you raised the basic issue.
Just as background, Susan, I talked a little bit about the fact that we're looking to see if there's some way we can narrow the scope potentially or focus on certain things that we think are more important. Because we did have concerns about the overall scope and cost of the, which was based on our RFP.
Right. I think that I wasn't actually prepared for comments on this, but I believe in our last meeting, what we talked about was to be sure that once we come up with a plan that would give the right coverage for all the services that we're looking for, it seemed like the proposal wasn't real clear on how we would approach our, how do we put that infrastructure then in place by encouraging people to come in and erect the towers or negotiate the deals with those folks? Because I know a lot of the ones that we have talked to in the past made it pretty clear that they could do stuff here, but it has to be economically feasible for them as well. Whatever they can sell on tower space factors into their cost to lease out. They have to be able to lease out the towers. So we may want 15 mini towers, but they may not be able to get any of the carriers to agree in our small little area to put cell sites on 15 towers. And I'm not making that up as an example. So we're trying to figure out if we do come up with a solution, what's your experience in helping us then take that to the marketing, get people that can provide that service interested in coming in and doing it.
Sure. So your observation about our response on that part of the RFP, not addressing it probably as completely as you want, was intentional. We don't know what that solution is yet until after we get through the mapping process. And so we have the experience for sure with implementation, but I can't narrow down what that might even look like until after we get through the predictive modeling. But things that we've done with other communities, once we know where sites need to go, if they are within the search area of public property, we've helped write RFPs for the community to issue for the wireless providers and or tower builders to respond to. We have helped structure lease arrangements to where if the gap area corresponds with a public safety facility that's going to be needed in that same space, that either one of two things happen, that the community builds the tower and then leases that, creates lease revenue from the co-locations of commercial providers on there to help recover the cost of that tower, and then to have long-term revenue from that facility for the community. We've also had communities in that scenario opt out of owning the tower. What we typically do in that case is the tower gets built and the tower goes through a rent abatement period until the tower is paid off, and then rent thereafter comes back to the community. And in both scenarios, in the event of the need of public safety, then those public safety antenna and ground equipment, of course, there's no charge to you all for that because it would be on your public property. So we've done those types of scenarios. We're working also with communities to come up with multiple options. So, and especially in light of if trying to come up with a plan that's not outrageously expensive, like you mentioned, but something that can be embraced by the community and by the industry. And we want the industry's input. And so it may take a couple of different scenario options to put forth to the community, see what they would prefer, and with the involvement of the industry, see what they would support, and then come up with your final plan based on community and provider input. But the entire plan would take into consideration all of the various users of that airway space: commercial, public safety, public works, broadband. We'll be looking at the big picture, and it'll be a 10-year projection, and you may opt to do it in phases as well. But to get more specific is premature, which is why we didn't really go in depth with it in the proposal, because we just don't have enough information at this point to be able to do that. I also wanted to just follow up on some questions from the last time we met with regards to our mapping. And I know you've had a drive test done and you have a study that has looked at some gaps based on the drive test. And I know that Travis mentioned that from a public safety piece, they can use that information for what they would be looking at. But I want to just point out that the reason why I said Cityscape really would not be using much of that data is because we will be using high resolution geodata specifically for the borough. We'll be looking at the borough in 2D modeling at 10-meter intervals. And we're going to be able to see what we call clutter in terrain. So we'll actually be able to see the ambient tree height, the building heights, and that helps us when we're developing our propagation patterns to identify the height that's needed. So it's not too tall and it's not too low, but it's a realistic height above ambient tree height, taking into terrain with the modeling to show really what you're going to need to cover those steep slopes and how you might do that. So it's a lot more detailed than what you've gotten so far with your drive test. And I just wanted to come back to that because the geodata is extremely helpful in helping us be more precise with regards to placement, height, and then what those facilities could look like to where they blend in with the environment and not stick out like a sore thumb.
Thanks, Susan. I see on your proposal, the only thing listed as optional would be the community survey.
Hmm.
Cost is one factor that we're looking at here. For a borough of our size, this is a big cost. And compared to the other proposal that we got, it's several times larger. Obviously, yours is more detailed and takes more things into account. But is there anything else there that we can kind of tweak or any other options that we had to maybe bring the price down a bit?
Sure. With regards to the community survey, we anticipated building a GIS dashboard so that when the community participates, we can see regionally where the participation is coming from. That helps you know where to market, perhaps to communities that might not, sections of the community that aren't responding. We don't have to do the dashboard. It also calculates data nicely for us so that we can put out the statistical data on the back end when it comes to report the responses. But we don't have to do the Esri dashboard. We could do a Google survey. We've done that with communities as well. It is not as costly. It's a minimal cost. We won't have quite the features available to us to present to you the statistical data, but we will have some statistical data that we can use. And it's still very helpful. So we could curb the cost there if we're not going to be building a dashboard for you.
During the process that you've outlined, one concern was raised last time, or when we talked about this in a public meeting. Will you be looking at existing infrastructure and to what extent we can utilize that as well?
100%. That's the backbone of your existing footprint. So we'll go out and we'll be looking at, I will personally be going site by site. Chances are Steve Webster, our engineer, will also accompany me. And we will go site by site. We'll be taking pictures. We'll be looking at those sites. We'll catalog everything that we find there. And that is the basis for the initial mapping. It's from those sites that we develop the gap map. And then we'll look at how to fill in those gaps. And we'll be relying on you as well to say, okay, well, this is what we would ideally like. Then we'll see if it'll work. And it's interactive. It isn't just a cookie cutter, one size fits all. It's very specific just for your community. And we want to come up with something that is going to work for you all, that you're going to be happy with, and the industry can also abide by.
I think you're.
Yeah. Hi, Susan. This is Yuday, now. Okay, so I see on your piece summary, you have phases, right? So 1, 2, 3, 5 phases. What's the protocol and process of moving through each phase and task? So I guess like this task is grouped. So once you finish like investigation, do you have some sort of stage gate where you present it and you approve before going to the next phase? What is the expectation here?
Well,
Yeah,
we're flexible. I mean, we like to do bi-weekly meetings, and so that we can keep the project moving and not get held up at a glitch for any length of time. And I'm happy to come back and report after each phase. Typically, like between the step 1 and step 2. Once we gather all the data, we usually then just come out and do the field work. But I'm happy to report to you what we anticipate doing while we're there, how long we think it's going to take, what we have found thus far. And then I can meet with you afterwards and let you know what we've done and what we found. If there was similarities, what did we find that we didn't expect? And I'm happy to meet with you each at the conclusion of each phase so that you know how the project is progressing.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking is obviously the marketplace can change and
Mhm.
market conditions can change, so including the borough's financial situations. So if we need to really determine if at the end of the mapping analysis, we have to stop, that's why I'm kind of asking, like, do you just keep going, or do you have to, is it from our perspective, we would like the protocol to be, I mean, if I'm wrong, approve at every phase to make sure we're on track.
Sure. Sure, we could look at doing something like that. And, if we get out there and if we get to the design phase and we find that it might not be as labor intensive as we anticipate, we can have that discussion with you as well. But this is a big project. It isn't just the commercial piece. It isn't just the public safety piece. It's commercial, public safety, public works, wireless broadband. And so we've got a lot of moving parts, and to coordinate and find synergy between all of those in a solution that is going to work for all of them. It's kind of a little tedious, but it's exciting and it's a lot of fun and it can definitely be done.
What's the timing on the invoicing for each of the phases as far as like to help us with our budgeting? Like, what would you anticipate the investigation phase would take in months, and then the mapping, that type of thing?
We follow your lead on that. So we can move as quickly or space the steps out accordingly based on what your needs are. Some communities want to get started and they want to be finished as quickly as possible, and we can do it in 2 to 3 months from start to finish. Other communities, we've got some projects we've been working on for 18 months because they are taking their time thinking about what the solutions are, getting community input, wanting to look at various options based on what we've provided them. So we really follow your lead in the pace that you want us to go.
Susan, just piggybacking off what Tom had mentioned earlier, about the use of existing infrastructure, like for existing data or analysis. You had mentioned you would basically uncover and see what we have already in inventory, right? That's already been done. Does that also include looking at agreements with, for example, the county? There are infrastructure agreements in place. What are your thoughts on that?
If there are antenna in the air, whether they're on an existing tower, water tank, rooftop, utility line, we're going to go to it. And it doesn't matter who owns it. We're going to want to know what you have, where it is, who's there, not only within the borough boundary, but within a 1 mile perimeter. So if the county has infrastructure, we're going to go to it and want to look at it, put it in the inventory and see how it can fit into the puzzle.
Well, maybe I'll ask another way. What if, not that there's infrastructure, but what if there is an agreement that we maybe are unaware of? Just trying to see what we can uncover here.
Oh, just
Yeah,
give it to us. Yeah, we do lease reviews. I'm doing right now I'm doing a project with a community in Florida. I just got back from looking at their public land sites, collecting all their leases, their addendums they own land and they've got towers on the land. Then they are on towers that are on private land. And I'm doing a complete lease analysis and for them. So just bring it on. We'll put it into the scope. And it's not an additional cost. Everything's inclusive with what we've given you. And I should point that out as well. What the cost of the proposal as presented is a firm price. So if we find that we need to come out for an extra site visit and it's not in the contract, we'll come out if it's necessary and do that work without increasing the cost of the bottom line. So you're not going to get a request to increase our price for what we propose ever. We do what we say we're going to do, and if it takes us down a rabbit hole or down another path, but it's in the context of what we're working, and we may not have thought about it during the process, like you said, some things that kind of come out of the woodwork, we expect that, and that's all included in our price.
So it's a flat fee structure, that's the ceiling, it's not going to go past that.
That is
The-
correct.
The little tariff in your response to request for proposal is in there because it's required by the RFP. You're not saying you're going to charge us extra money based on the hour for these items.
That
That's
is correct.
Okay.
And Susan, is that inclusive of travel as well? I don't.
So your flat
yeah.
fee charge includes
exactly.
the travel, it's all built, it's all baked in, whatever we're seeing.
It
that's
is.
what it should be. Yes, you don't. need
It
to-
is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So basically, and what I understand right now is just that you will work with us until we find the best solution for this wireless communication, right? Until
That's-
it can.
That is correct. We want a win-win. We've never had a win, semi-win.
So that means that until we decide to say yes to your proposal, and then you will stop doing more research or doing more investigation, right? That's right.
Yes. Yes. Right. We don't want to propose something to you that's not going to work. We want a solution. We want it to be a solution that you are happy with, that the community is happy with, that the industry can support. And if we have to go back to the drawing board or come up with a tweak or a different scenario, we will do that.
So Susan, part of it will be the final deliverables, the final wireless communication master plan report. Encompassed within that will be your findings as to which tower companies or whatever it is are going to actually participate in the master plan, or am I confused about that? In other words, it's not really economically feasible until it's economically feasible. We don't know that until tower providers show up and say, oh, this plan, we're all on board, we're going to make this, we're going to jump on this or whatever. Is that, am I missing? No.
Well, we're going to invite them into the process.
Okay.
And if they opt out, then there's nothing that we can do about that.
Right.
But we're hoping that they'll opt in. We usually what happens is we hear from them in the very beginning, and then if they're kind of like, they will let you know if they don't like something. and if they feel like everything's going, they're okay with what is being proposed, and it's not outrageous and it's not out of line with what the Code of Federal Regulation empowers both sides of the deployment process to do, then they don't say a whole lot, but they will let you know for sure if what's being proposed is not workable. But we will definitely be reaching out to all of them.
Susan, at the end, we get a final presentation, the master plan report. What kind of happens there? I mean, does your firm make the handshake to XYZ company for next steps, and then the borough handles it from there? What typically happens, but what's the handoff?
Well, the report is like a land use plan. It is your roadmap to get from point A to point B to point C to point D. And then how you do that is that vague part that we talked about in the very beginning. So if after that point, there are public properties that are supportive by the community and by the council to use, then we can help you draft an RFP, help you come up with the best terms, the best deal points for that lease agreement. And if it's all on, if there aren't any, if there's not synergy between public properties and where the gaps are, then you're going to be having to look at locations either in rights of ways or on private land. And if it's in the right of way, we can help you with that standard license agreement as well, so that you have it in place when they come in to use the rights of ways. But we're not going to be, if it's not on if it's not on public property in the right of way, we don't handshake on that sort of thing, because that's outside of our scope. We're only working on behalf of local government.
Yeah, I know, I was talking about public property, so I mean.
Okay, sure. So public property will help you put together an RFP. That's the most equitable way to use your public land, and we will help you with that for sure.
That's baked into the fixed price.
It is, yes.
Yeah, just one last question. So as we're going through the process, let's say this is a 9-month engagement, just to throw it out there. Let's say somewhere in the middle of the engagement, a tower company or a service provider decides to put up some 5G towers or nodes on top of a power line, like 20 of them throughout the borough. I mean, the borough is pretty busy, you know, staff are pretty stretched. So is it the responsibility of the borough to kind of like monitor all this, or, because I mean, it would make an impact on your outcome, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. Well, first of all, we'd want them to hold off until after the study was complete. And we would have that conversation with them to the best of our ability at the start of the project. And we do have another aspect of our services that we can offer to you, and that is a site review process, whereby we offer third-party review of applications that come in. That is outside of the scope of what we have provided thus far, but that is a service that we offer.
Other questions? Right. Susan, thank you very much.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you,
Be in
Susan.
touch.
Hey, all right. If you have any other questions, just funnel them to me. I'm happy to respond.
Very good, thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Want to make that decision tonight?
I think you should, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we've got all the information we're gonna collect on this now, so, you know.
Once again, she was very impressive.
Yeah.
I think we need to move ahead with the decision.
So just if you just authorizing or saying one movie, that doesn't mean you have to actually engage. We're just authorizing to. I just want to point in, you should have a termination clause in there. If
We
you're not
can work
happy
with
with
our
the vote,
solicitor, make
right?
sure the
So,
agreement's what we want to.
I haven't seen the terms, so I don't know if that's in there.
No, I mean, it can be either almost like a professional, engagement, that's just that
Better.
will, and if it is a, you know, flat fee for each phase, I mean, might be an issue, when you pay it, or otherwise, pull the plug in the middle of it, do you get a refund or something like that? I don't know, it sounds like they'd be willing to do this incremental approach, go first phase, see how it's working, what direction you're going, spend a lot of the time, you know, for what you're paying for, to make sure you're getting on the right foot, so to speak. And then if the money's there and the desire's there, move on. But from a budgeting standpoint, this is a big chunk of change, and
It's
you've
not
got a
in the budget.
proposed budget here. Not currently in the budget.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this it is there a waste? It's your last official act?
You asked about phasing, I did.
I would say we could swing it. I mean, it's something that council's been talking about for 10 years now.
We gotta get through this. It's an issue, it's a major issue.
If council wants to do it, we'll find a way to afford it.
And this is a very impressive firm. That has been down this trail numerous times, and I think we better go ahead.
I'm certainly more comfortable today than I was
Yeah, me
the
too.
last time.
It's hard sometimes because you don't know what questions you need to ask, right? And she can answer all different questions. So the question is, what are you asking? Is she getting what you're asking? Is she saying it the right way?
Yeah.
You know, so
I think.
I just wanted to get at the issue of phasing. Okay, so we get through the investigation phase and then do you invoice us for that? And then we decide if we want to move to the next. That's really what you're looking at.
And as we're talking about budgets,
Yeah.
this is a municipal election year, and the borough code, you have the ability to reopen the budget, during January. You can change the tax rate, you can change the budget, just have to do it by February 15th. This is, usually when there's a larger contingent, with one council member showing off and coming on, but it still applies. It doesn't need to be a majority of new council members coming in. But it is set up in that way. So you have some breathing room because it's a municipal election year.
Well, if that's helpful, then maybe we can use that if we need it. But John's right, we need to do this. We can keep talking about it and collecting more information. And Reed's did a really good job of figuring out how to get the experts in to tell us how to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And excluding the different providers that might have some interest in just doing whatever is best for them. This is an expert that doesn't have any dog in the fight.
Right.
I think that's really good.
Yeah, I just recommend we have those things in writing. After each stage gate investigation, the phases that they've outlined, borough doesn't have to approve before proceeding to the next stage.
Fair enough.
And then also a clause in there where we're not, but, if we feel it's not go positively, the way we think it should be going, or, showing that it's gonna improve the situation, some sort of opt out. And, but we're not penalizing the remainder of the,
Yeah, we didn't promise to pay the whole thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you can request an engagement letter from them,
Right.
setting up that. If it doesn't have that, put it in.
Yes.
We worry about looking at this as a.
Yeah, she seems flexible, which is a good thing.
I thought that was a good sign too, yeah. But you're right, as far as depth and breadth of knowledge, it's just unmatched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Good.
So how much time we want to give them next to complete this?
Well, they laid out a timeline,
Yeah.
it's approximately 6 months.
Yeah.
I know, it looks like to me, and what Susan said is kind of like it's time and it's kind of flexible.
Yeah, that's based upon.
So my question is that today, and if we want to get done, can we give them like less than 6 months?
Probably not, if that's the way their proposal has been set up. They might have to remove some phase or something. You can stretch it out longer. but
Yeah.
We have to talk with them.
Yeah, because for budget reasons, Jane, we were talking about phasing it, so it might go a little bit longer just because the cash flow and things like that, making payments and things like that. That was the kind of the thought
They have a
process.
7-month schedule shown here, assuming you start in October to run through April.
Yeah,
Well, we're probably gonna start January if we
Yeah.
decide to proceed. We
Yeah.
won't be done until
July.
October, August rather.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's still all gonna hit in 24.
So it needs to be budgeted for or handled or covered in some way. Yeah.
I mean, because it's a fixed price engagement,
Mhm.
from their perspective, I'm sure they wanna wrap it up in their timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But she did mention they've gone as long as 18 months with
Yeah,
municipalities.
because people were taking their time and figuring out.
It was a feedback.
Sounds like they're flexible too.
Yeah, I think that could be helpful too. Yeah. But it would be a positive step if we could just say we're gonna do this once and for all.
Well, should we take an individual vote?
No, no, we're not voting, just a,
Oh, no, not, yeah, we're not.
Just a consensus.
people
Yeah.
think, it, yes.
Yes,
Everybody on board?
yeah.
Well, as long as we have those terms. Yeah, Yeah, we want to be very clear on the expectations here.
I'll request their standing engagement letter and then
We'll
we'll look at it
yeah,
and we'll make sure. it
We'll
gets
make sure it's in
added.
there.
And at this point, would council like us to put it in the budget for the 20th then?
Oh, yeah.
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 Just so,
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you. Have to.
if your millage rate stays the same or goes down, you can do a resolution that whatever goes up. you need to-
Heard. And how long, what would be the plan, the timeline for that?
For an ordinance,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, our typical process is an introduction and then an advertisement. There is no special time period. It's treated like a standard ordinance, so I believe it's 7 days for the meeting is sort of the latest you could run it. If you reopen the budget, there is another notification advertisement that a revised budget is available. We're gonna do one. Yeah, the proposed budget is available and on display for 10 days before December 20th. So we do something like that in January.
Okay, then we can plan for, if we needed to do the ordinance for millage increase, we could, but that would be
Yeah,
part of the revised budget.
it would be difficult to do that for the 20th, just in terms of it as it's set up as a resolution right now.
Yeah.
You know, standard process is to introduce,
Mhm.
advertise,
Yeah, right.
the next time. You have some other flexibility because we'll have a voting meeting at the reorganization meeting, January 2nd. For an introduction, but yeah, we'd have to figure it out. I don't know what the February schedule looks at, where the 15th falls. Our meeting would be somewhere around there.
Okay.
That's as late as it could go.
February 21st is our regular
So
meeting.
you might have to, if at some point there's some action that needs to be taken. That we can't accomplish at either the reorganization meeting or the January work session, we can advertise, voting meeting, for the February work session, but that's all. Things you probably, it's more cost than one
Mhm.
headache, so we can make it work. Just
So,
I think, City Gene has run some savings.
wow, I'm see right now, I got 8 days left.
Working good.
Okay, we have a plan. I
Well,
believe.
I think we're good,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Just to be clear, right, if my understanding is correct, after they complete this one, and we should have a proposal, right, or report that they not only can, there's something like for the wireless connection, and also like the community will be happy with, it, right?
Well, we certainly hope.
Yeah.
All
that's
No,
the
not
plan.
hope, because we spend a lot of money on this one. Until that we get that
Yeah.
down, and I don't think that we should go ahead and, according to my conversation with Susan, she definitely said something like, everybody will be happy with that report.
I don't know how.
Win-win.
So I think it's
Yeah, she made this clear, otherwise, and I think that we spend a lot of money on this one, if we cannot get the why we are spending money on this. So I just want to be clear, and because you guys and looks like it really wanted to, and use this firm and choose, do some study. I just want to make sure that if my understanding is correct, if the communication I just had with students is 100% correct. So at the end, we should be able to say a report that everybody is happy with that, proposal or the plan. This is my opinion, okay? So I want to make it clear.
Well, the goal is certainly to have a win-win scenario, and that's what she said.
Yeah,
So,
so,
I'm not sure that there can be a guarantee.
And
by
I think that
any
today, at least we should put something, writing done to make sure that at least they can guarantee that we should have, otherwise, if there is,
That everybody's satisfied with the.
Yeah, no.
I don't think that's a
It's not an
possible
objective.
dream.
at least we can negative,
Okay, we
you know,
guide
and the process, not negative, and stop the here negative. What happened for the last 10 years? And we never could, you know, and come up with that, the plan, you know, to address this one. Because and if on the end of that day, and this plan, we don't have anything there. So it's just like, you know, what
I think-
happened, you know.
I think Ireder is being confident that she'll be able to deliver a plan that's gonna have feasibility and it's gonna solve the problem. And I think that's why we're hiring her. I think that's what we're expecting, you know.
These proposals based on our RFP, which was very clear that we wanted good to excellent coverage in 100% of the borough.
That's right, that's
I
right.
mean, we laid out what, we didn't tell them any way to accomplish that, that was the goal.
Right. No facilities or anything like that, just solve this problem, how we solve this problem.
I think in their engagement letter,
Mhm.
they should have like, what's their definition of done, right? That would kind of align it.
Okay. We're good, moving on. We have green and go. Okay. Old business, non-new business, Max, regular meeting agenda.
All right. So you have the agenda in front of you, in terms of some preliminary matters. You can see where it's listed. Spoil anything I'm discussing it right now. Stay tuned. I don't have any public hearings scheduled for conditional use applications that was tabled by the planning commission, the one that was potentially going to be on the agenda. So we don't have that. We have a number of, I won't call it housekeeping, because it really goes around the sweeps or anything, but this preliminary, motions with respect to setting everything up for 2024 in terms of fees and rates and appointments and things of that nature. So these are pretty much standard for every year. If there's anything we do miss, we do have the reorganization meeting January 2nd. For those, yes, pretty much everybody's been through, maybe two of them, the original one, your midterm one. But we are scheduled for January 2nd, 6 o'clock, wait a minute, what time, 7
We
o'clock?
have a pre-meeting at
6:00.
6:30, reorganization at 7, and work session immediately following that.
Why is that different this year? Because it's usually Monday, but it's a Tuesday.
Because
Yes,
Monday's the holiday.
January 1st.
The borough code, so every borough and township, they're all reorganizing. So the judges will be busy, magistrate, Stephanie Roselli, I think, already has 3 of our communities lined up, but
Yeah.
have we lined up with?
Lisa Middleton.
Yep. Okay, yeah, that's what I told them, this, oh, we don't need it.
6:30 or 6:30.
We have a pre-meeting.
6:30.
30 just to get ready to go out there.
Yeah, nothing at 6.
No, I misspoke. So that is, in the near future. I don't think there's anything. Well, we talked about the employee handbook ad nauseum, the personnel committee and executive sessions, but that is on the agenda as motion number 7. With respect to everything else, we talked about the budget just now, but you can see how these cascade in motions. Let's see, 8 is the budget, 9 is the capital improvement plan, so part of the budget. And then under the borough code, you have to act on the tax rate after you vote on the budget, so that is motion 10. And the resolution continuing the real estate millage rate as well as the Act 511.
We're good.
Warrior of these voters.
Okay. Okay, reports, Cindy, Dina.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Topical one.
Yes, it's my last one.
So first officially, you all know that I will be leaving the borough. So I'd like to thank everyone. The borough has been really good to me the last almost 3 years. It's been enjoyable working with everybody. The opportunity at the Pittsburgh Valley Theater was just one that I couldn't really pass up. It's a really nice fit for me and a nice opportunity. So I'll be. What's that? Yeah, you know, my, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. Just
So everyone's been very gracious, we took the news very well. But I leave you in good hands as Gina has now been offered and accepted the director of finance position. So Gina has a plethora of experience. She has a bachelor's degree from Duquesne University. She has 15 years experience out in the world. She worked at Schneider Downs and a couple other public companies. So she is fully knowledgeable and you are all in good hands. And we've been spending the last week and I'll spend the rest of this week and next week just taking care of all the I's and T's and things like that. But I am reachable, so please reach out to me if anything comes up, something that I did do or didn't do, or like, or should have done, or could have done, or questions or anything like that. I'm available and I'm local.
Yeah.
So, and Gina knows how to get a hold of me. So that's that piece. Other than that, you have my report. We are introducing the budget. We will make any changes between now and next week. Hopefully we'll get it finalized for the 20th, and then January 2nd, Gina will be here if it needs to be switched or changed or anything like that. We have reached out to the auditors. We did ask them to have our audit be a little bit later in February as possible, just to help Gina get through transition, but it'll still be in the same accordance and timely as everything with all that good stuff. Yeah, I think that's it on the report. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate it.
It's been our pleasure working with you.
You guys as well.
Gina, good luck to you. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Gina's excited to come to the meetings as well, yeah. Her and Sam have been talking about it.
It seems it's not.
Yeah.
Just wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I don't
my
think that's-
background, there's a lot of backgrounds.
Okay. Gary,
Yeah, my report, not really much to add to the report, just, prepping for the upcoming winter months and, you know, with the yard waste is closed now, we still pack my leaf bags over there and stuff and the items that were in my report there, and the other thing would be towards the end of the month, we'll be collecting Christmas trees and, so it's just, pretty much preparation for the winter. See what happens here and hopefully we can have another mile like we had last year.
we have plenty of salt, right?
Well, that's the other thing, you know, we
Yeah.
want to be able to use
Yeah,
what
we
we
want
have,
to be
just so we have enough room to put back whatever we have there.
I've got two for you, Gary. I'll try to keep them quick. I know you spent a lot of time repairing and replacing street signs, and I know you talked in the past where ours might not be as visible as they're supposed to be. Is there gonna come a point where you think we're gonna need to switch over? Should we start
Well,
thinking about that, planning for that?
I don't know, I mean, there was talk at one time, I don't know the full thing about it, but there was talk at one time that our signs are supposed to read
Right.
horizontal, you know,
High vis.
and, you know, not vertical, horizontally. The only thing we can do there, you know, if we ever get into that point, you know, we'd probably have to get into like our own possible sign shop, or if we were out there buying them, it's gonna be expensive to change if we ever get into it.
It might be best that if council thinks that you want to look at changing it and doing signage that, you know, if you look at a Hampton, for example, it's very detailed and kind of says something about the community. If you want us to look at doing that, I'm sure we could phase it in over time, but we could get some cost information for you so you can get a feel for how many signs are out there, what the cost would be, and how we want to phase it over a number of years, for example, to make it happen.
There's no requirement or anything.
We're not a compliance.
Right.
No, it's not a safety issue, I don't think.
I think it might be.
I think it might.
It was a push, I think
Yeah,
as
I-
Gary talking about it, that the Mud City or at least a federal mandate was supposed to be coming down the pike, but it never finished. I mean, I remember Ron Merriman, oh God, I'm dating myself, anybody else?
Well, actually, I have a Hampton sign down in the office.
Yeah, I think he came to a
It is, it's
meeting.
pretty, Yeah.
And it's been done as
Example.
Merriman.
Yeah.
It probably makes sense to look at changing it and deciding what we want the look to be for our signs. And get pricing and much like stormwater, decide on a course of action over a number of years to replace all of the signs.
Now, there's places like Ross Township has, if you get down, when we went down to their, equipment show thing that they had down there with the safety, training that we went through, they have their own sign shop, or they make their own signs. They buy the aluminum, signs itself, and then they put all they can make whatever type of sign they want to make. Any, whatever, you could pick out, everybody could sit here and say, okay, we want this, this, and this on the sign, and that's how you can lay it out. It's all digital. But it's gonna be a big, pretty costly change. Because I was looking into a couple different times, just sign wise, you're talking just a regular standard, two-way sign, where the X is showing streets. You're looking at probably $250 just for a cheapest sign out there. Probably the pole, the attachment piece on the top with the two signs, giving the street names. It is not cheap. It's not cheap at all.
So how many signs do we have right now? And
That
many streets we have?
I don't.
Intersection, it's gotta be, I mean, I don't.
It's a lot. There's a
I'll
lot.
get that information for you. Before we make any decision on how to proceed, we should know how many signs we need, what the potential costs are.
or whether we need just like for some like place and we need to decide.
Tom's gonna down. My second question, Gary, and I've talked to, I don't know if we've ever brought it up with you, but I've talked to Sam, Chief Healy about it. The fire department is very concerned because the light changers on 910, I think at this point, they're just disabled, right?
Yeah, they don't
So-
work when they redid them, they're disabled.
And there's been, according to what I've been told, close calls recently. How do we get those new ones in there? Who do we need to go through with, I don't know, what department that is. I know we're not budgeting.
Well, we already need to reach out to them. Because it's partly Marshall there too, so it's a two.
Well, and that's what they
community
said,
solution.
when they pull out, Domingo Road lights change.
And
Obviously,
Tim
ours
had
don't.
actually brought that to my
Disabled.
attention earlier. Let me reach out to Marshall and
Okay,
see what we can do to get PennDOT on board.
okay.
Luke, are you talking about the timing of the?
Yeah, when you have a fire truck or emergency vehicle and you have your siren on,
Okay,
that
override.
little thing there that blinks white,
To activate the light.
it should activate and let them through, but ours don't on 910. And the fire department is spending a lot more time.
Yeah.
Using that water even to.
Well, now with the changeover, all the stuff that's in place coming up there for the changeover on the ramps coming off of 79 and stuff like that, I'm sure. Probably at some point, there's gonna be have to be looked into.
Yeah,
as
we want
far
to make
as
sure that's
updating
part
all
of that project.
Yeah.
Hey, Luke, is that just one specific intersection or all the intersections?
Both of our lights on 910.
This
Yeah.
goes too, then it's a.
Those two.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's the Doppler effect, it changes that.
Yeah.
Just doesn't work anymore.
My understanding is what happened is when they put that smart light system in there, that was not part of the cost options. So when they reconfigured that, they left those just dead up there.
Okay.
And we weren't aware that was what was gonna happen, and we noticed that, and that's when we looked into it. and
I don't think anybody.
That's what they said, yeah.
That was that green light go, Sam.
Yeah, green light go, that's it.
So Domingo ours?
No,
No.
it's connected and works. Our two do not. Okay, that's it, sorry.
Anything else for Gary? Tim?
Okay, planning commission, will not have a meeting in December, no applications. The EAC did take a look at a request that Wetco made for their landscaping. Our resolution requires them to review, make recommendation to council, and then council needs to make the decision on whether they're gonna allow that or not. I don't think it has to be formal. Usually it's always been a thumbs up in the back room, but I can defer that to Max to see. Take a look at that and make that decision.
Under this is a revision to their
Yeah.
final
Revision to
approved
their-
plan.
Yeah, we did that resolution.
Yeah, I know, and it's incorporated in the development agreements as any changes comes through that.
Yeah.
And I know we've had some that are like engineer, thumbs up, thumbs down, landscape plans, I don't remember what the exact terms are. Yeah, there's some kind of.
But the EAC did make a recommendation that the revisions are approved, so. that's something.
That might be on your agenda, because I mean, the commission's not reviewing it.
Right.
So, maybe we'll have-
And then, we have, the zoning hearing board's gonna have 3 hearings this month. Wetco, is a continuation because the applicant didn't seem to have standing last month for the application. And then we have, 2 new applications, one a front yard setback on Village Drive for an addition to a home. And, we have Stediford's over here, wants to sell his property and the new tenant, I guess, or owner, as a condition of sale, wants to change it from a gasoline service station to a convenience store.
And he can come before it's sold, he can come.
Well,
No, you can't.
No.
If you have an agreement of sale, you're an equal interest.
But
You can
gives you
apply,
something.
yeah. you just-
yeah, so,
Being a sign guy, though.
It's a convenience store only?
well, here's the thing.
Says gas
What it is
station.
now, it's a non-conforming use. It is a gasoline service station. Garen Rudder and Bean made application. They're presenting this to the zoning hearing board. And, they're calling it a gasoline service station convenience store. Well, we don't have that use, but we do have 2 separate uses. One's a gasoline service station, one is a convenience store. And convenience stores may have gas pumps, so that's what they want to convert that to over there, if I'm reading the application correctly. And I think that the position Beam is taking is hoo-ha. But, nevertheless, I think council needs to make a decision whether they want to have a development fight or whether we just want to, let it flow with natural force,
Yes, basically, they just want to eliminate the mechanics section.
pretty much. And
Well, Harris, an
to
existing
be
con-
perfectly honest with you, it'll probably be a more
Change.
sightly site, sure.
Yeah,
But,
cars
that's,
parked there. And
that's something that you guys should, make a determination whether you want to do it or whether you don't. The other issue is Wetco.
Back to the convenience store, is that gonna be a more congestion in that already?
Well,
congested
you know,
area?
they're gonna have people in and out, so they're not gonna have cars sitting there waiting to be repaired. So I think the vehicles, there's not a whole lot that's gonna comply with that site. The site is big enough, it approaches on property lines, things shouldn't approach on property lines. The parking's probably not there, for it. The building itself is not even, is in the required yards. It's just
so they really couldn't expand.
nothing, no, so they really can't expand it. They can put a fresh coat of paint on it and put a new dress on the old girl and make her look pretty.
Put some drinks and.
I think what they're gonna do is it's gonna change to a Sunoco.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, there's, and I'm hearing bits and pieces, so some of this is hearsay. We're not gonna know a lot of stuff until we get to the hearing and figure out what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
Like a mini stuff?
But I mean, it would have to be, it's not,
Yeah.
it's not. very
Yeah, there's
big.
one, if you get on Rochester Road, past North Hills High School, you're familiar with that area? There's a Sunoco at the bottom of the hill, and it used to be, same thing, used to be a service station. It closed in the garage bays. Now the building is all convenience store with the gas pumps out front. So that's,
So they wouldn't even knock it down. They do new buildings.
No, they're just, I'm sure they're just gonna, freshen it up.
Yeah.
Take out the garage, but probably take out the service bays and just make that into
Well, the service space will be converted to.
the store.
I just, traffic, like people,
Yeah.
it's crazy enough with Lenora here.
Yeah. There is.
With a lot of people trying to come out this side.
Well, there'll be a whole lot this year because gasoline is gonna be the in and out stuff. There may be a few more people. But I mean, these guys get traffic in and out all day long over there.
Do they? I've always wondered, I didn't see it.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they get, their buddy visits and everything. It's a party over there every day.
It's just a really tough area.
It is a tough.
It's hard to read it, it's hard to understand it if you're not right, I mean,
Well, and
it's,
it's hard because people.
You ever try to cross Lenora?
and there are people that are like, zipping or like, well, this must be 2 turns to get here, and people have to wait for me while I'm Gotta, I mean,
That's surprising about. We don't get any extra stuff there.
that's right. Well, we talked about that. I think we
Not a
actually
lot.
asked the GP lead one, like, what is that a
Yeah.
double stop?
Yes.
It is a
You don't
double
stop the
stop.
vote, you get a
That's,
ticket.
that was what Chief Doris said, it was only one, so that's why. I
It-
agree with the second one.
I only ever saw it.
It's only one.
Okay, well, there you go, there's.
Said it says one.
See if you get
Because
organized.
you stopped at a stop sign. You could not possibly stop at
You
that
couldn't
stop
get
sign.
yourself into the next stop sign,
You'd
right?
drive into the woods.
Yeah.
So that's just a visibility.
And the comprehensive plan architects looked at it and tried to come up with different plans.
It involves going or it goes to the beautiful building.
Roundabout, closing Lenora, and none of that.
There's no fix other than tearing that building down across the street and making a whole new intersection. So that may be something council wants to think about. We got a budget, you know, we can add some more stuff like that. All right.
Cindy's gonna.
Well, that wasn't helpful.
Okay, Friday, yeah.
Any questions for Tim? So we have one more thing. We have the Wetco. So we have an application for Wetco for signage and they're being represented by Meyer, Yankovic and Scott, I believe. And they have made application for 9 signs.
9.
One sign that they made application for doesn't fit a requirement, so it's not required to even have a permit. The other 8, what they're asking for are required to have permits. The problem is that they're either too big, wrong location, or there's too many signs, because technically they can only have, since they're a corner lot, they can have 2 wall mount signs and a freestanding sign. So they're allowed to have 3. They have a few more than they're required, and their signs are, if they want to put in the building, are huge. So
Yeah, I saw that on the drawing.
we've been, I guess, Marianne and Scott got a hold of our solicitor, told them that they were gonna be represented, and they need to know whether you need them to go and sit up the hearing and defend or make.
It'll be an executive.
And we have,
decision. Yeah, so.
even though it's sort of active litigation in the sense that an application has been filed and just potential litigation.
And doesn't matter to me either way, I'll be here.
Yep.
So I'll let you guys make up your decisions. And that's, with that, I think that's all I have. Okay. Jim?
Yeah, my reports, with the parks, I did add, you see, is the lighting for the baseball fields. I know back in the spring, they just gave us me one lump, 900,000 to $1 million. This kind of breaks it down a little better per field, if we want to go per field. Field 1 is, but they do have the Moonstone poles, so that's the easiest retrofit. Kind of indicated if you start with one, the other prices will come down. It just shows you're committed to actually using them. That's, that's kind of at the top of their list, or, price wise. Our lights are working, but even like field 1, there's a few that are out. That lighting is obsolete. You can't get new ones, you can't get parts. So unless you can find somewhere where somebody that took those down and they have extras to replace until that time, but it's something we've got to put in our scope looking forward in the future for replacements on those fields. So I had added that in there to help us out. And then for the golf course, the new furnace is in. The only other thing I wanted to bring up with the golf course that was kind of brought up in the budget meeting is our pricing. If we're close, if we're in with everybody else, and I don't see my paper here, but I compared with Mount Lebanon, who's kind of in the same boat as us. The same model, 9-hole course. I mean, they're 100 years old. Our prices are pretty close in line. I've talked with the superintendent over there. Mount Lebanon's kind of content with not, making big money. They want to keep it small, quiet. I lived in South Oak my whole life, didn't even know the course was there. So there is some struggles there. Keeping the budget year to year. He's stretched thin because he doesn't have the manpower. They don't have the money to pay. The one thing I did a report for November through November. The one I can say, we had another record year. We did break 600,000 for the first time ever, so which is good, but we've also been very busy, which helps that since COVID. Our last price increase was a couple years ago. We did like a 10% increase on everything. But our costs obviously since COVID have gone up anywhere from 30 to 40%. Most of our equipment's 40% higher than it was then. So we're pretty close on, we're right with them. A couple of them are higher. I compared, Moon and Cranberry when it came to 9 holes. They're $2 or $3 more. I know we kind of threw out there if we raise like a $2 on the rate. The one thing, we are the only ones that have the seasonal program. Nobody else has a pass like that. Everybody else is eliminated. Not Lebanon's eliminated it. I would recommend us eliminating. We have a lot of, the kind of like ambassadors of the course. That's like their home place. But if we raise that, even the 15%, for what they know it's a deal. I mean, obviously anybody complains when we raise prices for anything, but they also know that even for a senior at $400 right now, 34 rounds pays for itself. And most of these guys are doing, they're playing every day. So we're doing anywhere from 90 to 120 rounds a year. So they're basically down to like $3 a round. So I don't, some guidance, do we want to keep the price the same? So, do we want to raise it, keep it, keep with the Joneses and keep it, the money going forward, but not, to the point where we're too high.
I like your proposal with, $2 and then 15% on the. If that's what you think.
That's what I would recommend.
It's feasible and not going to get too much.
No, I think that, in the last, since I've been here, the last 8 years, the course improves condition-wise, the play that the people know that we're here and we're proud of, who we are, and we like to share with everybody, and it's a very, nice and playable course. A lot of compliments too.
It's amazing the turnaround with the course. When I was first hired, the course was having trouble reimbursing the borough for payroll, and there was a large loan outstanding. Now it's self-sustaining.
Yeah, I don't think.
And actually, they're able to put money aside for capital improvements.
Yeah, when I started in
Really
15, we
impressive.
weren't getting any, with 330, 350 a year was the highest. And, as we track that one chart, we have tracked back 10 years. Until COVID, we were nowhere near that. Each year I keep saying, we can't get any more, and, we did 25,000 more than last year. So, that's, kind of what I just wanted to throw it out there. Everyone's okay with, it's not too big, but it keeps us up with the current pricing changes as they move, because everyone always says prices will come back down. They don't. Fertilizer prices are coming back down, or equipment's not coming back down. So that's just, the prices are what it is.
Yeah, and like you said, it's been, I think, what, three years since.
Yes, it has been 3 years. Like I said, we raised it 10%.
Yeah.
It was only $1, and of course, everybody complained about that $1, but they all came back the last 3 years plus. So, but I think $1's nice, but I think if you do 2, you can hold off longer in between each increase.
And it makes up for all the inflation.
Sure.
For a bit.
Yes, because obviously they are, we have a good staff. They didn't get a raise last year, so each of them might have, have to get a little, so there's all that cost gets involved in that. So.
Jim, I think currently in the budget, we have a $2 increase for the fees and a $1 increase for the cards. Do you just want $2 in total, or do you want?
Yeah, I'll look at, but basically, $2, because, $2. One thing I didn't look at, the seniors and juniors, like, the adults have a weekday and a weekend. Weekend's always $1 more.
Okay.
But for the seniors and juniors, there is no, there's a flat fee altogether. So,
Okay.
to keep it fair for all, I think they should increase the same amount.
Okay.
But right around, $2 up was where I was thinking of $1 for.
Okay, perfect.
All I got.
That's it. Any questions for Jim? Will that cover Cityscape's proposal? Just asking for a friend. Capital improvement.
Put the car on the golf course, maybe. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Get rid of that girl who just said that.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple quick updates. We do have our monthly memo. People report that are moving along. Fire alarm project, the borough building. Andy and I actually have a meeting with our sub-consultant tomorrow afternoon. We're hopeful that very soon we're gonna be in front of council and ask to request a bid. So we're nearing the end of the design process there. That one moving, parks, ACCD, coordination, so we did get comments back from Acorn Park for the permit there. Those responses went in a couple weeks ago. So hopeful that we're moving through the process and we'll be through DEP soon for a permit. So gearing up for construction through 2024 here. Somerville sidewalks are in, and we've driven down Brent School Road, and there's up to the two homes that are gonna do it themselves.
Where's the second one? I can't figure out where the second.
It's the empty lot in the house.
They're contiguous there.
In the
yeah.
house right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, two
House
houses.
with the governor's driveway doesn't have it.
Oh, that's the one.
It comes up to their one end of the driveway, but doesn't go away.
Right.
So yes, and one journey there, two sidewalks, so one brand school. And those are the big ones for updates, as far as active projects. I can answer any questions for Ryan, the council.
I saw you say that Palumbo resumed work. That might be an old note. They're still, what are they working on?
They're on, roll over, they're doing, curbs over there.
It's been.
Yeah, they're about, I talked with Michael today and usually talk to him every day for some reason or another. He was talking that, they're pretty close. He said he thinks he's pretty close to halfway done with it. That's what he's talking, but I guess there'll probably be at some point you're looking for probably a payment on the curbs up in there too, at some point there too, so.
And that's the end of their work.
Yeah.
And for the, Summerfield sidewalks, we'll have to move on to the next step in that process. Payment.
Yeah. It's been interesting.
Okay. Anything else, Sean? Nope. Thank you. All right. Board commission application update, Kathy. Sam. Oh, I'm sorry.
You have Chief Leach's report there, and just to update, Officer Smith was cleared to return to duty, so we no longer have any injured officers, and the 3 new officers met with Kathy this week to get their HR paperwork all going, and everything's moving forward with that. One thing I did want to ask council just to consider and look over is, it's kind of good because we were talking about signage, is we're in the snowplow, snow removal season. And for the 31 years that I've been here, the way we notify the people to not have their cars on the street is basically almost the equivalent of knocking on every door repeatedly and telling them. We issue parking warnings just on every single car. And we do put it in the newsletter. It is now on Facebook and on, I think Donnie even put it on the electric sign. However,
that's $5, isn't it?
well, yeah, well, first we go out and we give warnings. And then we don't have any good way really to track that. So the guys are just like, I remember giving this guy a warning before. But 3 of the other guys have also given them warnings before we get complaints. So Ohio Township and some of the other communities erect signs at the entrance to a plan that says, no borough ordinance, 22 dash whatever, no on-street parking between 2 and 6 a.m., and for snow removal. Did a rough count in order to get it into front of every plan, one single sign, it would be about 60 signs. So I did bring in just a few copies of what Ohio Township's signage looks like in front of the plans on Nicholson Road. If everyone just look at it, it's something that you guys would consider to do that. But just food for thought on that. If you guys need some, I know Tommy always comes and he catches me and he goes, these guys get them parked. We start in October and generally try to get everybody into compliance, but it's a lot of man hours spent at first to try to get them, and it's just by writing a little yellow warning card and sticking them on the cars. It's the equivalent of letting people know one at a time.
So Mike, is that the cost without is that the post? That's without the post, right?
Yeah, that's just at the entrance to one side.
Just the sign itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, did you give an amount? Sam, on that?
There's about 60 that would cover, I didn't do like Jenkinson and Nevin and those, because we generally don't have any problems with this plants. We don't need one on Branch School Road. We don't need, some of the larger, roadways that we don't have a problem on. If you wanted to do like Jenkinson and some of the other, neighborhoods, it'd be a few more signs.
Max, does it have to be posted, the fine that's gonna be enforced on the sign, if there's a sign? No, okay.
Like a no parking sign.
Okay, good.
But, I mean, you can also do similar ones, either the no overnight parking or even something like that, that's just a time period, that's sort of the entry points into the borough is another option. Now Lebanon does that for, 2 AM to 6 AM parking.
Helpful for people coming in, people living there who don't.
Well, the idea is you see it and then you're on notice and there's other things, because really, I mean, to ticket somebody for a, parking violation, there, not only do you have the ordinance, traffic study that established it, but you have appropriate signage and you have no sign everywhere, that's one thing, but those types of borough-wide, prohibitions can be done.
I think we,
Main points and not.
I think we did 18 and 20, when we replaced that all the entrances to the borough.
We're not talking about the time period where you can't park, we're just saying during snow events.
Well, that one has a date, at least,
I know.
between, for snow events, but not.
But don't you have any pass an ordinance that?
I think
We do have an
So we already
ordinance.
have it.
Yeah, it is prohibited from parking on the street between 2 AM
Oh,
and
I
6
didn't
AM.
realize that. Okay.
Oh, yeah, 24/7, well,
That's all year round.
It's
all year,
seasonal.
all year round. It's not seasonal, but, unless you're out looking in the window and you see somebody parked in your street and you're outraged, and we have a few of those and we take enforcement action. We generally start in October to try to get people into compliance. One of the things that we run into is that the magistrate's office, if they don't respond to the borough ticket, then we issue a state citation and they plead not guilty and they show up at a hearing. You're gonna pay an officer now, potentially overtime to go down there, and the judge is the guy's gonna say, I didn't know there's no signage or anything.
Good enough for me.
Yeah, and then, so this would help maybe be another piece of evidence to show that, well, it's in the newsletter, when the presidents move in, and there's a sign at the entrance to their plant that they drive by every day. I think we might get it held a little bit more, because it's just so that we're not sending the guy down to court, paying them time and a half, and then getting it tossed because we don't have enough signage on there.
What's the fine we're trying to collect, $5?
Well, that's the borough ticket. So, the officers, after they issue so many warnings, then they start issuing borough tickets, which are $5, and they pay them at the municipal building. But when they don't respond to the tickets, then we send them a state citation, which is $25 plus the cost. It's quite expensive. So they ask for a hearing. And generally, the magistrates, whether it was Wagner or Ford, generally dismiss them because there's really no signage and things like that. So
What if you have a sign and, like I've seen in some municipalities, like, not like this, but, other sign, can't think of the example, but it's usually the beginning of when you enter the municipality. What if you have a general, just a general sign that says no parking during snow, just, that's it.
yeah, I mean, I'm
Instead
just
of-
throwing this out there for council to consider. These are some of the things that, I've been dealing with for 30 years.
Yeah.
And, this is sort of like, hey, this would be helpful. This is my thoughts on this. And, but, it's also kind of unsightly signage, and how much do people really, so there's that way. And there's a cost to it,
So there are 11 state roads and 1 county road in the borough, but
Right.
these would only apply to borough roads.
Well, generally, people aren't parking
Or not gonna get
on
parking
the state. Yeah.
I mean, some of those are pretty remote.
Yeah, we wouldn't do Fairmont Church, Hopkins Church. We don't have issues with people parking on the street on those roads. So this is just mainly like, think of driving down Nicholson Road and all the plans that are off of that, or off of Branch School, those plans.
Yeah.
So that's just, my thoughts I'd like borough to consider on it. I mean, it could even be something, since we're already gonna be in the thick of snow removal coming up, probably not be something maybe we can think about for next season.
And I think the point, it's to prevent people from parking in the road when there's a snow event, more than trying to get a $5 fine.
Yeah,
Right.
So putting it in just the entry to the borough really doesn't accomplish that. You want people in the neighborhoods. Remember, don't park on the street when there's a snow event.
Why is it only $5? It's the reason why.
just sort of as a courtesy, not to have it be prohibitive. But some people that they'll say, I'm just gonna pay it because it's cheaper than trying to get another parking space because I don't have enough room, or my kid gets up or my driveway's a steep cliff. So, that's where that is.
How much pushback do you get from people when you write those?
When they get it, they're not happy. Yeah.
Only $5?
Yeah. Yeah, well, they come in and we've had people pay with pennies and things like that. Yeah. But,
We love that. upstairs.
yeah, but it was good old Pat Beatty. The guy demanded a receipt. He said, wait while I count it. So, yeah, but yeah, they're generally not happy, but most people do just mail them in or come in and pay their $5 without, but a lot of people, their argument is, I didn't know. And then we'll say, well, it's in the newsletter, it's on the borough website. So their knowledge base isn't as great as a sign, which they'll probably ignore any.
Just a thought on this. I know we don't want to put a bunch of signs when you enter the borough. It's unsightly, but I think when you enter the borough, isn't there always like a speed limit sign like a little bit after? Like when you come from Ohio Township and
There's the welcome signs.
there's a welcome sign, but then like 20 feet later, there's like, it goes back up to 45 miles per hour, like. could you
Certain
flash-
spots.
flash
Yeah.
this underneath that speed limit sign.
Welcome to Franklin Park.
But he wants to get it on, he wants to get it to the entrance of the plant. Well,
I know, just to,
but you're correct, though, when you enter a plan, not far into the plan, there should be a
There's a sign.
25-mile speed limit sign, and some of the plans, there's a weight limit sign as well. So, if you wanted to add a smaller sign that said no street parking 2 AM to 6 AM, that could be done as well. So,
maybe a way around it.
The 2 AM to 6 AM thing, that would cover the snow event, right? Because that's when you're trying to clear the snow.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think the ordinance says or a snow event, so if it starts snowing at noon, keep your car off the street. So,
We could also do a better job of reaching out to the HOAs to let them know they should let the residents. Huge help with that part of the street, for sure.
thank you, that's all I have.
That's it.
That's all I have, thank you.
All right, you have my written report. We do have a number of executive session items, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just wanted a question that you said that you were doing utilities who had questions about
Yes.
the street opening ordinance. How that goes.
Well, in terms of the outreach, Donna and Gary, sent out to the utilities, copy of the application form, the ordinance, et cetera. Received just a one-line question back from one of the power companies, not municipal authority, but public utility. Just asking questions about it, and we did do some research. Turned out that particular company had a case against Putnam Township that went to the Commonwealth Court, maybe the Supreme Court, through the PUC that sort of carved some guidelines around it, but in general, we can't intrude on the PUC's jurisdiction. They're the ones that are in charge of, where power poles are to go or otherwise, but we can assess, either an occupancy permit or a street opening permit for them. If they're coming in to put in, because the question was, if I put in a new pole, do I need to do this? And we said, yes. We're not going to get into the specifications of it, or is it needed or not. But if you're going to be closing a lane of traffic while you do that, if you're going to be in the ultimate right of way, those are areas where it can be required to provide for and get the permit. If they're in a utility easement or they're on other property outside of it, this is only the street opening. It's not just in the street, it's the right of way area. So a lot of utilities, particularly the underground ones and others, are in a separate utility easement, which would impact it. So we put together a summary, some bullet points. Gary, did you get any bounce back from
No, nothing like yet, but well, I got a little bit from Westview,
They're,
Yeah, they-
PUC, yeah.
well, Westview responded to me and told me that they were basically that their system is, it's gonna take them probably a month before we're gonna see the paperwork on anything that they do. So, you know,
After they do the
Um,
work.
What emergency?
well, basically, yeah, they're, whether if they have an emergency tomorrow, or they open up a street, normally our ordinance is stating that, okay, within the following day, you have to apply for a permit. They're telling me that by the time it gets through their system, it's gonna take possibly a month or maybe even better before we even see the paperwork coming through. So, and they sent a permit through and I sent it back saying, I'm not gonna issue a permit on the one that they had until we receive payment, and I haven't heard back from them, so. Up there, they're gonna fight it tooth and nail.
You got the retention.
Yeah.
Yeah, they only have themselves. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Or for you later.
Yes.
Kathy, board report update for the commission.
The updated spreadsheet was enclosed in the packet. Dan Lutner was the applicant who was interviewed or was interested in the Civil Service Commission alternate position. He was not available to come tonight, so we've scheduled him for 7 PM on December 20th. So that interview will be first. The only other interest, that has been expressed is Wayne Chang from the Planning Commission. His email letter of interest is included in the packet. He's interested in the TAC. He's already serving on the Planning Commission, so I don't know if you have any preference to, if it's necessary to meet with him, since he's already serving. He's also interested, but I mean, we've put it out there every way we can think of, and, I have to say, this is probably the least number of applications we've ever received, but especially we have a large number of vacancies. So spread the word. Talk to your neighbors. UDA gets the
I
gold
got
star.
one.
So. Yeah, we have
Any interest in interviewing? Wayne?
Obviously.
All right.
With the Phillies.
What?
It's a vacancy.
Yes. It's a rolling, yeah.
And their term would be short.
So if,
You get a pro rata share of the term that you fill.
if going forward we receive it, because people randomly will submit applications, I'll let you know.
I did have someone that inquired about openings last year. I'll reach out to him and see. He's interested.
And we did have some people who were interested in areas that we don't have vacancies.
But Joe, what do you say? You said you're not gonna interview him for TAC? I didn't.
Wayne Chang.
Yeah, right.
Because he's on planning commission?
Yeah.
Right.
Just
So
going
you're
to
just
point,
gonna move or keep him on planning
You're
commission?
gonna be on both.
Yeah, but.
We're gonna keep him on both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
yeah, I will turn it over to Cindy and Gina. If I can introduce the budget, here's the budget.
Yeah, so I sent out the budget. Sorry. So as we've all been talking, the budget is the thing for next year. We are planning to begin 2024 with an unrestricted cash balance of 4.2 million, which is nice to start January. Of that amount, though, $2.9 million will be used to balance the 2024 general fund budget. So as it stands currently, our expenses are $15 million for next year and our revenue is $12 million. So we have a $2.9 million deficit, which we will cover with cash that we have. So that puts us at the end of next year at a $1.2 million cash balance, which could easily turn into a $1 million budget if we do more, $1 million cash balance or 1.4 million, depending upon projects that don't get done. So at the end of next year, that puts us at like, you know, the GFOA recommends like a 17% reserve. At the end of next year, we would be at like a 10% reserve.
We do have some grant applications that we haven't included, obviously, for projects that we have included. We requested another $300,000 for the Acorn project from GDTF. Requested, $100,000 for the bucket truck. So if those come through, then obviously the money that's not in the budget.
Exactly. And the one thing that I know, that I don't really talk about here, but I know Gary has talked about it in the paving next year. I know that we typically budget for paving of like 4.5 miles, and we've only sort of budgeted for like basically half of that. But Gary did had a nice idea that I know he's talked with you about some of the materials, not doing the full, correct me if I'm wrong, like 2.5 inches, just doing.
Yeah, it might be a test we might want to run on some of the streets. Some of the roads and, you know, the sub-base on some of the roads aren't really, don't seem really bad, but some of the streets need paved instead of like what we did on Inglemoor Heights. Inglemoor Heights, we did a 2-inch mill and overlaid the road with 2 inches of wearing course. If we did that on some of the housing plans, you know, we could probably pave, you know, a lot further distance, like Inglemoor Heights, I believe we probably saved in the area somewhere between, say, $110,000 $130,000 on paving that road the way we did. I mean, that was the reason we did that is because of time frame and how things came about, but it might be something we might want to look into possibly this coming year coming up, and it might give us a little more mileage on the road just to see what it's going to do further down the line. If we can get, you know, if we can get 5, 8 years out of a road, you know what I mean? And a lot of these roads we have to do in 8 years or so anyhow, you know, 8 or 10 years on some of the roads we've done. It just depends on the sub base it's on. So if we think, you know, like over in King Williams, King Charles, those places over there, you know, you can get in there and do that plan for probably half of the price if we don't get into the binder portion.
That's a good.
You know,
That's a
binders,
really good-
you know, I mean, it might be worth a shot to try it. You know, some people will tell you you know, shouldn't do it that way, but then again, too, is, you know, I think in some of the areas it might be worth a shot to try it, just to see how it would work out for us. You know,
Sean's all for
to
it.
get us a little more distance on the roads, you know what I mean?
I think it's a
Those
good
are the-
idea.
Sorry, Brian.
That's a good idea, the cost savings measure, we talked about savings on roads that we could put off on not paving, but if you're paving them for half what you were, then you know that seems like a good plan.
Yeah.
Especially if we're getting close to the city now, like that.
Yeah. So why do we-
That's a good question.
Yeah, like I said, some of the roads that, you know, and we could tell when we mill them off or the sub base, we have to get into base repair when we do that. You can always do some little base repair in some areas. Some roads are just have a bad base on them, the whole road, you know what I mean? So, and it's gonna be probably not feasible to do that, but
Inglemoor Heights looked okay.
I think,
Inglemoor Heights looked okay.
yeah, I mean, it looks great. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just
that
depending on
looks
how, you know, how it's gonna hold up, you know what I mean? But that road's a highly traveled road. It's got a lot of traffic on it, so I'm sure that, you know.
Hey, Gary, what was go over that again, what was the difference you did on Inglemoor Heights?
Inglemoor Heights, when we normally mill a street, we mill it 4 inches, probably down 4 inches. We put 2.5 inches of binder, 1.5 inches of top,
Right.
of course, okay? When we did Inglemoor Heights, we just milled it down 2 inches and put a
So
2
you still had a
inches,
good solid base.
2 inches of wearing course on it. Yes, and actually, when you do that, sometimes the road that's underneath it, you're not going all the way down to the
Right.
sub base.
Right.
So you're leaving a solid part of the road, especially in the plans, you know, it could work out better for us, or it could work out in our favor down the line if we do it that way in some of the streets, but.
Well, just that I've had, you probably too, John, but I've had lots of appreciation of press about how quickly we did that thing.
Yeah, right. Same here.
It turned out great, I mean, it's, you know,
And the other thing too is, we got lines.
yeah, none of the other roads, county and all them don't have.
No, that was the other thing that.
I had a lot of, yeah. a lot
Well,
of people
that's
said-
the other thing that people recognize, that we have the line. I'll tell you what, and it was raining, really raining, and I was found at on the McCandless intersection, was a 4-way stop button. I'll tell you
You
what,
can't see us on the road.
without the lines, I had no idea where I was on that road.
And they're gonna have a hard time putting them on at this time of the year, you know. You know, you put them down, they're gonna have paint all over everybody's cars, because it's too cold. You have to have the heat, you know, the warm days to like dry it up, you know, but,
Sean, you have any experience trying this method?
Yeah, so in the road programs that we bid, we implement that strategy a lot. It's basically in every other cycle. If you paved it 12 years ago and 4 inches and put new binder in, and the next time we usually mill two, we'll scratch and put wearing, get you to the next cycle. A road that's got a lot of, cracking in it, not a good idea because the reflective cracking will come through the wearing pretty quickly. But yeah, if the binder was new 12 years ago, we actually do this very frequently. Same sort of idea to stretch the dollar to continue to pay more and more.
Gary, how'd you get the lines done so quickly?
We hired a company out to do it. The state does our lines through the agility program. Okay, but the thing that happened with us this year is they'll normally only do like, probably up to like 2 miles of lines for me each year when I do it through our agility program on for us mowing the streets. So what happened is I had a couple streets done this year, not anticipating that we were gonna do Inglemoor Heights. So when we were doing that road there, I turned around and hired a company to come out. It cost us about $6,300 to do it. But they come out and then I tell you what, I was happy with what they did. They come out, boom, called them out, and it was within 2 days they were out, did the
And
last.
it's perfect.
And it, I get a lot of compliments on it, and there's like, like I said, with the county and, the other roads that aren't done, with the lines on it, there's a lot of people complaining they can't see the roads.
Oh, my goodness. On a rainy night, dark, you don't see the road. I'm not gonna go any further than that. I did end up off the road, coming off of that intersection.
Okay.
What was that?
I said, that was you. Right. There's one on 910 when I go out Wexford Run and go up the hill. They repaved that and they put the 2 foot of the topsoil on that. Somebody took about 50 feet with a tire and went right up as you come up the top of the hill. What a mess they made of that.
Well, I didn't make a mess, but I wasn't on the road.
Okay.
So the only other thing that maybe is pertinent to mention besides, thank you, Gary, about paving that is in place. There's not huge areas to save large chunks of money, so the current paving number that I have is $600,000 for materials for the 2 point something, so, and that includes the larger fill amount. So if we could reduce that, that would be great. Then the MS4 projects, we do have $1.8 million budgeted. Those are based on the costs that we originally thought. I think we've only had the one bid, which we did reject. It came in decent at Trump higher, so that will be just something else that everyone will have to watch closely.
It's bad again, right? So.
We're talking again on Friday with NEMAX.
Justin's before he said we were.
So Justin's no longer in the loop. He's redesigning the pond, so it's the site it was originally. And Max and I are talking to Mr. Schweiger and his attorney on Friday. We think we have a path.
The 1.8, if it doesn't get spent, it's.
Reach question. I'm not sure about the rule. I think what the rules
Let's
are.
put it this way, right now, we are supposed to have all this work done by March of next year. At $1.8 million,
And
we will have none of it done.
Right, none, which means you want to spend it either.
Right, but in a meeting, DEP did a presentation to all the North Coast Cog communities, and there are communities out there that have done absolutely nothing. At least we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on design. I guess.
Okay.
That's a good thing, DEP said they are willing to say, yeah, sure, if you need a few more months to get the work done. But if you need 3 years, they might have a problem with it. But we're gonna have to ask for forgiveness no matter what, and I think they're gonna give it to us, but we really do need to get this work done by the end of next year.
You have to make a good, it sounds like you make good faith effort, and we can't even
We're
get a
trying.
bid that's gonna work, so.
We have issues that we'll be discussing in executive session that may have to be addressed. It's not easy. I mean, when the government comes to private property owner and says, we'd like to, do some work on your street and kind of take ownership of it, but some people don't appreciate it.
You're not really into it.
This is why this should not be a borough.
Anything else?
I don't really have anything else. I think we've all talked about a lot of the details, some decisions that we will have to make next year with, potential ways to increase the revenue base. But I know you guys have a plan of action in the future.
Okay.
That's it.
Right on. They all in conference. Have fun, guys.
Just want to let you know that it is April 4th through the 7th next year. The sooner the better, letting Kathy know if you plan on attending.
Come out this year.
I can't, I gotta take John for lunch.
As details come out, we'll get them to you.
They were a good conference. Really were. You learned a lot. Okay, reports from council mayor. Brian.
Just a few, we followed up with the Antrim Court, owner. Remember, I sent you a little email and said what they were talking about.
I followed up. Yes, you did.
Okay, is it okay then? They were happy that we talked to them.
I haven't followed
Oh, you haven't yet? Okay, that's fine. And then Cindy alluded to it, but I think we should seriously consider the home rule charter plan. And definitely talk about that whenever we're allowed to, or whatever. I think it's really important. So that's my thing. Yeah.
You Nate.
Yeah, definitely have the Brian's thought on the home rule. Stuff like that. Soon. But yeah, reach the trash, the recycling bin. Yeah, I think I emailed you and Dawn about, so, it's supposed to be picked up 3 times a week, and, for everyone's knowledge. But these containers are like blowing like to the max, so.
Glass, is it glass?
No, it's the cardboard.
Oh, the cardboard.
And the glass.
Not the glass, but it's fine. Both, both cardboard.
I mean, it's always full when I'm there. I know
Right,
that.
yeah.
But if it's picked up 3 times a week, I kind of waited till yesterday, Tuesday, right? So the assumption is one is kind of empty, so midday Tuesday, that was full as well. So my thought is, they may not pick it up. But I saw the schedule of donuts, right, so it's alternating. I don't know, the math, it just doesn't add up. It shouldn't have been that full so soon. With one at the max, and then the next one is pretty much a full point.
A lot of businesses, a lot of vans, trucks.
But we've also had cases where Waste Management said there, according to GPS, the truck was there and we discovered it wasn't. So
Yeah,
we do have the opportunity to check our cameras to see if a Waste Management truck was in there during the time frame they say it was there. And find them if it wasn't.
yeah, I've got a feeling this might be one of those, but.
We've let them know that
Okay.
if this happens again, fines will be assessed.
They played it real fast with this, with leaf bags in years past, and
I remember
Donna
last year,
started
right?
holding them.
Yeah.
Not that she started holding, she held them down one, and this year they have definitely kept to that schedule, so maybe this.
Yeah, we should definitely fix those guys.
We do have an escrow for them, so we don't have to build them if we find it. Simply order from any escrow we return. So
Even better.
The businesses, you know, do about that, right?
we want to encourage recycling, so that makes it a really tough one. You don't want to say if you're not a resident or if you're this appliance delivery guy pulling up with all these boxes. I guess we should be thankful.
Yeah, not this.
But that causes problems.
This definitely was like very unusual. It was-
Yeah,
It was just like.
we had heard over the weekend they were full too, so it seemed like unless somebody really jammed a whole lot of cardboard in. It sounds
With those new bins, though, you can put boxes in there without collapsing them, you know, to a certain degree.
I mean, everything was pretty
And you
much
couldn't
collapsed.
on the old ones.
Like the old ones, yeah.
You had to flatten that for sure.
Because there was a little spot.
Yeah, it was a spot, right.
Yeah, in this case, everything had been flat, so I mean, it's efficiently.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, that's it.
Because my window's open, but in the winter I don't hear them.
The other thing.
No, that was it.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, I'm good with the home rule. I'm with it. Yeah.
Mayor.
Nothing other than the fact that we had a successful no shave November. And we what was $830?
Yeah, I think 830 sounds
$830.
correct.
We brought up to Cindy, and it's going to go for a good use at some point, needy use. So based on that, and based on Aaron or the chief coming to me and asking, could we go another month? Maybe we can get up to 1,000. So I just sort of do that. So we're now in no shave December.
I feel.
You have to pay a penalty fee, you don't
That's
know
right.
that, we'll be billing you for that tomorrow, yeah.
You can start, now you can start again.
You made it through the month, didn't you?
So, anyway, we're hoping at least to get, and I'm sure we will, we'll get to $1,000, we're hoping for. Right. And it's also being well received downstairs, right?
Yeah, the guys appreciate it.
Good morale booster, right?
Yeah,
And
everybody's, we only had one guy shave, Brian Blakely. So he had, if you ever saw Joe Dirt, he had, that's where it was growing, and it wasn't so much here, and so but in his defense, he gave it a good 2 weeks. Yeah.
You still had to pay though.
Yeah, he still had to pay, yep.
That's it, thank you.
From me,
I'm good, thank you.
Tom.
Well, two quick things. Reed, I know you did respond to my one neighbor about the stormwater.
We need to go out and take a look at a short-term solution on that.
Well, you know, that, there's about 60 feet or 80 feet, I didn't measure it, of where it comes under Full Road from the ditch and stuff and that on the other side. That's the one that actually the hole was
Right,
fixed.
right.
Then it's an open stream, and then it goes into the pipe that runs all the way down the, and he's at first pass, so I'm not quite sure why those two were never connected. Why wouldn't that 48 inches coming under the road, Gary, have been connected into?
It might have been because there, I mean, with the original road there was no piping even down where the houses were at one time. You know, down towards your house there.
Yeah.
That was never even piped. Then once they developed the houses in there, you know, the road probably always had a pipe going under it, so. And then they probably just left it and never tied it in there. So sometimes they don't tie them in because if you start tying them in and it's got too much of a length, the pipe's too long, then you're gonna start putting basins in there so you can clean out areas. So sometimes it, you know, it creates more of a costly, thing. to-
We'll take a look at it.
Do it the
see if
right
there's something We can do it. It may be something as simple as riprap to protect it from washing away, but
Yeah,
he
his-
sent an email that it seems to be washing away like a stream bank might wash. it.
I went down there one time and he was telling me, I did not see anything that looked like was anything moving. He was telling me that the manhole and all that stuff is exposed down in there. All that water is coming off the Matterhorn down over that hill there. I mean, that's probably something and it's gonna have to be some point,
Yeah.
you know.
We'll talk again about his concern. He's saying it looks like his house might be shifting, so we need to take a look and see if we need to shore something up. I'll get with you on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just read his description and it was kind of like he's getting it from all three sides and stuff.
Yeah, and
There's a lot
there's
in there.
some of the sides we may not be able to help him with, but certainly the water coming under Cool Road. we should be able to.
Kind of related to that, this summer, I did have a major drainage project in the back of my yard. And I found out that the original manhole, which is on the left side of mine, into the hill, was never really tied in. They built a block thing with a grate, and about 4 foot away, there was a pipe going down to the street. And they took a half section of pipe like a spoon and connected it to. It was all buried. They dug it up and it was all mucked out, so we ended up filling that in. And then extending it the other way and all across the base of the hill. Did help dry up the back of the yard, but it's just a mess there. The neighbor right to my left side, they have constant standing water in the backyard. It's just a mess. So I bought the house when it was 2 years old, right? So I had no dealings with the builder, don't know what happened. But digging that up and repairing it was an eye opener for, I think we, assuming Tim and his staff or the borough engineers pay a lot better attention to what's going on today than what they did in the 1970s. I think it's real important to have Sean and his staff out there taking a look and just be sure these things are really being built the way they should be. And the second thing, I was on Nextdoor today and I saw a neighbor from Ross complaining about their emergency EMS fee that they have to pay. I guess I knew they were talking about it, but I didn't realize they had actually implemented that.
Yes, I had to pay it.
$55 per household.
Everybody's basically watched you see how that plays out.
We,
communities.
yeah,
Did Westview do that too?
I have Ross
Not
West.
Westview, but-
It goes all the way from Millville to Ohio Township. It cuts through Reserve, Ohio Township. Cindy, you probably
Yeah,
had.
and somebody had incorrectly posted, I don't know if it was that post, but somebody had incorrectly responded. Actually, I think it was Betty Gill Dietz I had seen responded and said, everybody has it, Franklin Park, and she named other people.
Services tax.
And you can get somebody deal with
The
it.
local services.
Yeah.
They also said it was 110, which is. They didn't point out that 55 of that was a.
Well, it's
late fee.
55 with, instead of a penalty, I guess,
Yeah.
you paid the year
Yeah, if you
before.
pay, supposedly if you paid it by a certain date, that's all you paid, but what people are saying now is if you
Holiday.
just pay it, they'll take the 55,
Yeah.
they won't charge you.
Well, there's one able to enforce it, right? There's not-
No, you can't leave the house or anything.
That's
So
part
I'm
of,
sure they'll take whatever.
part of the question. That's why other EMS agencies are watching to see how it works.
Yeah, right.
Cause I think it's not enforceable, right?
Not really.
I think the other communities in Kansas Franklin Park are very interested in that.
Why is it not enforceable? What's the?
Wait a minute, if you go onto their own website, they even say that it is allowable by law. They are allowed to.
To do
collect.
Yes.
This was on the Ross Westview EMS site, right? Is the authority, we're an authority and we are permitted to levy a fee.
And it's cheaper than what I used to pay for a subscription.
I pay $90 for this.
I was gonna say, it's cheaper, so.
What they're saying.
everybody has to pay it.
Correct.
But what they're saying is there's still a two-tier thing. There's still a subscription even if you pay this. And the difference is this only covers part of the cost. You still get a bill with this. If you have a subscription, you pay nothing. That's what their own website explains.
That's not the information that they send out.
Really?
Yeah.
That's how I read it on the site. Anyway, we talked about all the problems McCandless is, and Frank Park Authority is having. And I guess I wasn't really aware that they were actually collecting it in Ross.
It came out in the spring, I think.
I think so.
I think it was due, supposedly,
Yeah.
the original due date was May or June.
If you go on their website, it explains how they're allowed to do it. If they want to raise it, they claim they have to get all 7 municipalities or all 5 municipalities all have to agree to an increase in the fee.
The MFPAAR guys are watching that closely to see if it's gonna work. There's some skepticism there, and appropriately so, for various reasons that we've seen.
Yeah. It's interesting, they actually like try to put some of the legalese on what they're doing on there. I guess it's rwvems.org, Ross Westview EMS.org, just the first letters. If anyone wanted to read it and see what they're doing, but I'm glad McCandless is up on what Ross is doing there now. But I still feel bad that people they should really, if everyone here subscribed, it wouldn't be an issue.
Right.
Okay, nothing else, John, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Luke.
Just a quick follow-up on Tom's. I know that we have in the budget what they asked for the EMS authority. And you know, like McKenna said, they're getting 100,000. I think it's Marshall giving 40, right? Marshall. Have we heard whether any of the other municipalities?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, Marshall.
I would suspect that Marshall is in Bradford Woods is probably getting a small piece, at least that was what the managers thought was going to happen, but then again, the top line was going to get next.
What did that, what they asked for from them?
Don't recall what they asked, but when the managers met, Pine was talking about possibly contributing like 80.
Moves on, better than it was.
Better than it was.
And the authority itself, and
Yeah,
they're doing really well. Chris is doing a great job.
that report, this, if it was in the packet, was
Yeah.
good news.
It's come a long way under his leadership. Okay. I think that's it. I had a couple of items. I think we've covered them all. Yeah, okay. Meeting is coming to an end and we have the executive session. Thanks, everybody.
I think so.